I know this is an Afrikaans channel and we focus on Afrikaans. But today I'm going to go through tips to write exams. And best to do it in English. So let's go. First of all, the reason I'm doing this is to help you. I've been marking Afrikaans papers for the last 3 years, from grade 8 right through to matric. And with this, I've compiled a list of tips to help you to get through your exams. The first thing you've got to understand is how your paper is structured. We have a paper out of 80. The first section, section A, is comprehension. In Afrikaans, begripslees. This can range from between 20 to 30 marks. Let's have a look. Most of them, let's have a look for 30 marks. The second section, section B, is your summary or your opsomming. And that is 10 marks. And then the last section, section C, is your language section. The language section. That is a full 40 marks. Now, I've got a question for you. Who told you that you have to do section A, then section B, and then section C? So many students don't finish this part. And if you look at this is 50% of your paper. Where should you start with your paper? Section C. Section C, normally you will have visual literacy, which is an advert, and then comic strip. Advertensie en 'n strokiesprent. With questions, 10 marks each. Then you will have the next 20 marks dedicated to language questions. Language structures, sentence structures, changing words, and identifying certain things. So, my tip to you, start with section C. Before you do anything, read your instructions carefully. When we start writing an exam paper, they always give you between 5 and 10 minutes time to read. Use that time. Take a highlighter. Guess what? You are allowed to write on your question papers. And keep this in mind. Reading time, read through your questions. The moment you are allowed to start writing, take that highlighter, highlight what is important on your paper, that you know what to do. When you start doing your questions, you can leave pages open to keep it in order. But start with section C, the language section. With this, you can pass your paper. The next one you do is your summary. This is very important because this is very easy marks to obtain. Right, language section. Concentrate on sentence structures. Changing sentences into future, past tense, active, passive voice. Jou leidende en bedrijvende. In this section, you will get comic strips, and advertisements. Sure. Okay. These are normally 10 marks, 10 marks. Let me quickly tell you about comic strips. The first thing you've got to understand with a comic strip, the questions are about what you see. It is called visual literacy. A comic strip, you have to tell me or describe something what you see. A good example, you would get a question that requires you to identify an emotion. What does the character feel? 90% of your answer, the character or the person is feeling sad. Yes, they might feel sad, but how do you know that? To get the marks, you have to describe what you see. The person is sad because there's tears running down his face. The person is excited. Why? He's got wide open eyes and his mouth is open. You have to describe in detail what you see. Advertisements, the same thing. It's always about what you see. Look out for a play on words. Ask yourself, why did they use this specific visual in the advert? And when you answer, always keep that in mind. Most of the time, you will get a question that relates to both the comic strip and the advertisement, either to compare the two or contrast the two. When you answer this question, mention both in your answer. State a relevant fact about the comic strip and provide evidence by referring to the comic strip. Tell me something about it. Tell me what you see. Then you give a statement about the advertisement. Provide evidence for your statement. And then you compare or contrast the two. Good. Now I've finished the language section. Just a quick little tip. You spend so much time studying lists and lists of idioms and intensive forms. Jou intensieve forme en idiome. And you get 3, maybe 4 marks out of the 40. Is all that time worth it? Or is it better to make sure that you learn how to answer these questions? Remember to use the correct terminology when you answer these questions. Next, let's have a look at your summary, your opsomming. For the summary, I'll start with the first, most important part, is read your instructions. The instructions will tell you very clearly whether you have to give the answer in point form or in paragraph form. If you do not follow this instruction, you automatically lose your language marks. The second thing you have to look out for is whether you have to give information or instructions. When you give instructions, you have to start your sentences with the verb. Good. Now I'm going to give you a secret, especially for Afrikaans, and that is how they allocate the marks. Let's have a look. Seven facts, 7 marks. Then there are 3 marks that count for your language. Good. With a summary, this is how the marks are structured. 7 facts for 7 marks, and 3 marks are allocated to language. We add this together, and that is where you get the 10 marks. These 3 marks are allocated in this manner. If you have 1 to 3 facts correct, 1 language mark. If you have 4 to 5 facts correct, 2 marks, and 6 to 7 facts, 3 marks. However, if you paraphrase from the text, they also look at that. So let's have a look quickly. So paraphrase works this way. If you paraphrase, let's go. Phrase in Afrikaans, aanhaling. If there's one sentence paraphrased, you can still get your 3 marks for language. However, 2 to 3, it's a maximum of 2 marks. Four to 5 paraphrases is a maximum of 1 mark. And 6 to 7 paraphrases is no language marks. What does this mean? Even if you take directly from the text and you write it down, you can still get 7 out of 10, because you still get your 7 marks for 7 facts. Think about that one. Another point I've got to make with summaries, you do not have to have a draft. Remember, time management is super important. You don't have to write a draft. Write it in pen. If you do want to include a draft, not a problem. But do me a favor, don't write it in pencil. We are not allowed to mark pencil. And also, if you write it in pen and write a draft on top and you run out of time, you can scratch out the word draft and write final on top and still be marked. So don't draw lines through work until right at the end.
So you are not allowed to mark a draft?
I can mark a draft if there's no line drawn through it and you've changed the heading to final. Then we can still mark it. Think about that one. Next section, let's have a look at comprehension. Comprehension. In Afrikaans, begripslees. This is also one of the sections with the most marks. I suggest that when you read your questions, you take your highlighter and highlight the question words. Make sure that you analyze your question carefully, and when you write your answer, that you answer every single part of that question. Your mark allocation is a good indication of how long your answer should be and how many facts or references there should be. Good habit is always answer in context of the text that they provide. Don't go find answers everywhere else. The answers are there in the text. The next thing, please, you are wasting so much time to rewrite the question as a part of your answer. That is what I call a time waster. Don't do it. It's not necessary. Just answer the question. And always provide evidence for your answer. Second time waster for me that I picked up with so many students is long half a page paragraphs to answer a 1 or a 2 mark question. Big time waster. Be concise with your answers. Rather spend the time to make sure that you answer the question. So, in summary for paper 1, do the language section first. Then do your summary and then do your comprehension. You can always shuffle the papers. Manage your time effectively. The last tip I have for you for comprehension papers is please work through past papers. You will see how the questions are asked, how the questions are formulated, and how to answer them. It is very important to prepare for exams by working through past papers. Today we've covered tips for paper 1, language comprehension and visual literacy. Look out for the next video for tips how to write exams for paper 2. Paper 2 is your literary essays and poetry. Do not miss any of those videos, and remember, subscribe.